Hi, everyone, and welcome to our final virtual session of our 15th Annual Smart Energy Summit Series. I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research at Parks Associates, and so pleased to welcome you to our session today. If this is your first time joining us at Smart Energy Summit, welcome. This event series brings together utilities, retail energy providers, home service providers, retailers, software providers, and device manufacturers to share learnings and strategies for expanding and monetizing the home energy markets and new opportunities to drive consumer engagement with smart energy products and utility programs. I always want to start by thanking our sponsors, SmartThings, Skybell, Arcadia, Residio, and Universal Electronics for supporting us all year long. We couldn't have hosted these great conversations, and also our in-person Smart Energy Summit co-located at DistribuTech without you. So thank you all so much for your support. We really appreciate you. Today, our agenda includes a presentation by me. I'm going to open up presenting Parks Associates research on the smart home and energy efficiency, talking all about this topic today of demand-side management and how to leverage IoT for energy efficiency and demand programs. Then I'm going to sit down with our very own Daniel Holcomb, who is our Senior Analyst at Smart Home and Energy, to discuss some of the biggest trends in smart home and energy that we've seen this year. And finally, I'll be talking with a great panel of representatives from Leviton, from Schneider Electric, and from Ecobee to hear what they're focused on and maybe a preview even into what's coming down the pipe for 2025. So today we're really highlighting the ability of internet-connected devices to be an impactful resource for managing demand on the grid, focusing again on the growth of connected resources behind the grid, the growth of devices to be able to call on, rising consumer interest in home energy management, and how we can turn that interest into action and participation with demand response programs. And then also, where's the opportunity to expand the value proposition and perhaps attract some new participants by thinking about the whole home and thinking about the opportunity here a little more holistically. So this week, you may have seen that the U.S. Energy Information Administration released its short-term energy outlook and projected power demand to rise to record highs of more than 4 trillion kilowatt hours in 2024 and more than 4.1 trillion in 2025. So a continued increase year over year of that demand on the grid. And a lot of that is actually coming from data center usage. So all of that, everything that you hear about AI and the advancements of AI that are here and coming and being invested in, require those data centers behind it, as well as cryptocurrency, very, very data heavy. And so a lot of building and bringing on those data centers to the grid, as well as electrification of household appliances and HVAC, primarily residentially, and then electrification of transportation, growth of EVs, both residential and also fleet and commercial enterprises using more electric vehicles than ever, really increasing that demand. Well, there's a variety of devices in the home that can be called upon to impact demand on the grid, particularly when coordinated both in the home and across thousands or even millions of homes. So home energy management systems can coordinate some of these devices together, shading and fans and smart vents or thermostats, for instance, to reduce energy consumption, while water heaters and other appliances can be set back or off at certain times to shave load when necessary. If we look at the full connected device landscape in the home, taking a big picture view, you can see that on average, U.S. internet households own 17 connected devices per household. This goes even higher if you have, multiple people in your household, kids in your household, a little lower for solo individuals, with a lot of that being driven by connected consumer electronics, streaming devices, smart TVs, also growth in smart home devices, growth in connected health devices. And if you look at the smart home category itself from 2014 to 2023, an almost 10-year view there, we've seen a 5x jump in adoption of smart home devices in the home. So today, 45% of all U.S. internet households own at least one smart home device. And certainly thermostats are and have been the central story in the smart home of that home energy management play. We've seen meaningful growth in smart thermostat adoption in the past 5 to 7 years, with 17% of U.S. internet households owning a smart thermostat at the end of 2023. This equates to about 20 million, or actually more than 20 million households, creating a strong and growing base of consumers capable of participating in energy programs. And what's notable here is that consumers are noticing energy savings from these smart devices. About half of all smart thermostat owners say that the savings that they're seeing have met their expectations. And for 36% of owners, their device has saved them even more than expected. So it's a really great sign. So just 13% here you can see said that it's saving them less than expected. So it's a pretty great sign for this continued slow and steady uptake of this really critical home energy management device. Also, those enrolled in demand response programs, another positive sign for the industry, generally tell us that their experience hasn't been very burdensome, with 44% saying that they barely noticed a difference at home. And so also a really great sign for uptake in these programs. So the resources are starting to be in place and growing, but consumers need to want to participate in the energy programs, participate in VR programs to make this growing landscape of connected devices impactful for utilities, for grid operators. Now, over the past several years, consumers have been reporting increasing electricity costs at home, rising every year since 2020, which the US EIA data mimics as well, and confirms that the majority of households are seeing increased electricity costs. And in our data, regardless of household income, the majority of households say that electricity costs are too high. What that means as an opportunity, though, is that consumers are more primed to take action around ways that they could better be managing that energy bill. More consumers than ever are telling us that they are actively working to reduce their energy consumption at home. And so we were taking a closer look at those who have a smart home device and smart home devices at their home, and seeing if they are coordinating their devices together for any particular reason. And it could be for safety and security in their home, for entertainment and fun, for caregiving for a loved one, etc. And the number one thing that they've told us that they are coordinating their smart home devices to do is actually to save energy in the home, just narrowly matching and beating out perhaps the decimal points there, securing the home, which has always been a top driver for smart home devices. So that's a really great indicator of interest in taking action to save energy in the home. Another thing that was really interesting that we saw in our data this year was that when we tested actually 97 unique potential smart home routines or benefits, and there are several things that popped among older consumers as being even more appealing to them than younger consumers, which just about never happens in technology. Usually the younger consumers or sort of middle-aged households with income are the leaders in tech affinity, and you're always going to see a age chart go the other direction. But there were several routines that stood out specifically for seniors. So the older consumers, ages 55 and older here, you can see, are actually find it much more appealing than younger consumers that their devices work together, or their HVAC, hot water heater, and appliances adjust automatically to save energy. Also, some really interesting interest in thermostats just adjusting the temperature for them when they wake up in the morning. So energy, compared to some of the other use cases that we test, is one particular area where seniors are really kind of, again, primed for action, engaged interested in ways that they might be able to do something different at home to save energy or make their home more comfortable. So how is that translating into demand response programs? Well, currently 12% of U.S. internet households say that they are enrolled in a peak time reduction demand response program. And that number has grown meaningfully. So from just 7% of households in 2018. Now, when you look at just smart thermostat users here, we're seeing 1 in 5 enrolled in the DR program today, which is really great to see. What the industry sometimes misses, though, is that it's not just about enrolling, it's also about retaining those participants as well. And 13% of current smart thermostat owners say that they used to enroll in a program, but no longer do. So they've moved, perhaps, they've changed providers, they're in a retail energy market, and they have all sorts of choice of plans. They might be hopping around, and this last year it was a demand response program, this year it's time to use it something else, right? So the providers really have to think about not just, again, engaging and onboarding folks, but you have to continue to give them reasons to stay and keep them in the programs to be able to use them as a resource. And of course, we want to engage those 65% of smart thermostat owners who have never participated in DR. So how do we encourage more uptake? Incentives are certainly, right at the top. It's the #1 driver that those who are participating today report for why they signed up. It's because they wanted the incentive. We also think there's value in expanding the value proposition beyond kind of demand response specifically. So energy savings is a great point, but connecting into the larger ecosystem and finding partners who are providing a different, perhaps even more valuable service to the consumer that DR or utilities or thermostats can be a part of can help kind of rise the tide here. So we think the first step in providing more value and just working more as an ecosystem than sort of solo programs is smart things and providers being able to talk to each other and to the consumer. So releasing the energy data, right? Knowing what's happening is the absolute baseline to making all of the rest of it work, and also making sure the consumer is in there and being able to see those energy insights. And we've had some progress on that this year. The Home Connectivity Alliance released their energy management interface specification this year so that appliance manufacturers can release that energy data and share it across to each other. Matter just this month released its energy monitoring and energy management features with the Matter 1.3 specification. We saw Tesla and SmartThings and Ford and Residio having one-to-one partnerships about how they're doing data sharing. So that's great that more progress is being made on how these devices can tell each other, tell the consumer, tell other players in the ecosystem what they're up to, how much energy they're using, and when, what their status is, are they on or off. A lot of progress here opens up some new opportunities. And finally, I just wanted to draw out 2 examples of ways in which there are larger services to the home that are leveraging smart devices behind the meter in unique ways that consumers see value in, that can be a driver for more participation, broadly speaking, in thinking about how to better manage energy at home. So the first is thinking about HVAC services more generally. So sometimes we talk just about like not monitoring the energy of your HVAC service. Well, lots of folks have HVAC services today, and the #1 reason they're doing that is because they have technicians that are coming to the home that are servicing their unit. When we tested a next generation HVAC service, an advanced HVAC service that had all sorts of different benefits, where it's connected, a connected system or thermostat that's telling the HVAC service dealer as well as the consumer more of what's happening. We see that 52% of single-family homeowners are interested in an advanced HVAC service. That personal service to the home is still the primary driver for that, but 38% said a must-have feature of a service like that would be a smart thermostat that can adjust to household behavior to save on energy costs, and 33% saying being able to see the energy usage insights from an HVAC system. So one example of where working with skilled trades, working with the HVAC ecosystem can provide energy as part of a larger value proposition that consumers already value and pay for today with HVAC services. Another example is pools. So lots of utilities and grid operators looking at pool pumps, particularly in certain states, certain markets with very heavy pool ownership, for ways that they can engage pool pump owners and energy monitoring programs. There's a great ecosystem of dealers and service providers in the pool space as well, and a lot of use of pool services. 40% of pool owners found kind of a next generation pool service to be very appealing, where the number one driver here again is something different than energy. It's video monitoring alerts actually for the safety of swimmers. 51% really interested in remotely monitoring pumps for maintenance issues. But then 46% said a must-have feature would be coordinating pool pumps to run when electricity is lowest. So there's ways in which we see smarter energy benefits being part of that vision of a smarter home or a smarter service that can be provided at home. So with that, I'm going to ask my colleague Daniel Holcomb to join me. And thank you, Daniel, for coming on in. Okay, so we're going to take some time to chat together, and then we're also going to take questions from the audience. So if you have any questions about any of the data that I shared, or questions for Daniel and myself, go ahead and share them in the chat, and we'll see those. So Daniel, why don't we start off by you telling us a little bit about your role at Parks Associates?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Well, I am the Senior Analyst of Smart Home Research at Parks Associates, so I touch everything related to the smart home, and that does include home energy management. Some of the projects I've been working on this year are projects some of you are familiar with, such as our Smart Home and Security Tracker, which gives a bird's eye view tracking all the movements in the industry, including energy-related announcements. We track this news and provide our own impact statements, as well as some of our consumer data. This year, I also worked on an EV quantified consumer, which draws from our survey of 8,000 households every quarter, and talks a lot about EVs, EV charging, and the different markets for it at this time. And that's a little bit of a high-level view of what I do.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm glad that you shared that great EV study that you worked on. That's actually one kind of major area that I didn't talk about that is really incredible when you think about the demand that it brings to the home, just easily displacing the HVAC system as the greatest energy consumer for a lot of those EV-owning households when we think about demand on the grid. So can you tell us what you're seeing in the market for EVs right now, maybe from a macro perspective?
Yes, so the EV market this year has been rather challenged. We're seeing high interest rates as well as falling off of consumer interests, adoption, purchases, intentions, even familiarity, which you would think wouldn't fall off, but those things tend to move together. And they all indicate a weakness in EVs right now. We're also seeing some challenges within the industry that are resulting from the falling off of demand, including not only a lot of companies pushing back their expectations on production, but we've even seen some bankruptcies. I saw just recently that Fisker had declared bankruptcy, and along with that, on the charging side, NLX Way has ceased operations in the United States, which is definitely going to impact a lot of customers who already have EVs. So there's definitely a lot of challenges within the market, and what happens with the consumer side impacts the industry side.
Are you seeing, maybe from the study that you did earlier today, some of the main barriers for EV adoption right now, besides obviously some of the interest rates and things that are making the auto space a little weak right now to begin with, although maybe a little bit that's coming down, but what are some of the big barriers for the EV market?
Yes. So, in addition to the high interest rates I mentioned, which has impacted, the auto industry across the board, including EVs, we're also seeing that the number one barrier in our research to purchasing EVs is costs, or at least the perception of cost. Along with that, we're seeing that there is some miscommunication, and maybe some of the message is getting lost for consumers, or perhaps they have objections to certain things. But we're seeing that there's a skepticism of the cost savings of EVs, as well as the skepticism of the green impact of EVs. And we're actually seeing skepticism in those areas in which consumers are less believe that than they did like a year or two ago. And there's also uncertainty around the EV lifestyle, range anxiety, batteries failing if they're too cold, chargers inaccessible when needing them. And some of this comes from media news stories, or word of mouth from other people who do own EVs.
So definitely there's a lot of uncertainty kind of around that EV lifestyle, right? For now, but what are we learning from EV owners today, right? Who have already gone there, they've already taken that step. When we think about how are they dealing with this issue of the EV charging all of a sudden again being this huge demand in their home, what do we learn about EV charging at home?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our data does show that 91% of EV owners charge at home, and that is the top location they want to charge, which provides real opportunities for other use cases when it comes to energy management in the home. Now, EV owners are far more likely to engage in energy programs, particularly time of use, but also demand response programs. Our research finds that 30% of EV owners are enrolled in a demand response program versus 12% of the general population. And 50%, or rather, internet households, I should mention. We also find that 50% of EV owners are willing to adjust their charging themselves during a peak event, versus 34%, and for 34% are willing to allow OEMs or utilities to adjust for them. That makes EV charging the number one device consumers willing to let the OEM or utility adjust for them. And that's pretty significant. I mean, that's above other things like smart thermostats, for example.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's great to hear. I mean, EV ownership being 5-6% or so of all households, you imagine these folks are going to be particularly understanding of, how not only the charging impacts their own household, but perhaps what programs are out there to make charging cost effective for them. So particularly likely to understand that there are demand response programs out there and a willingness to engage in those programs. How about, did we learn anything related to EVs as far in EV owners thinking about their EV as a part of the ecosystem in the household, right? Where there's some automation or coordination between devices at home.
Yes, we are seeing that as well in our data. Our data shows that 76% of EV owners or intenders say that it would be valuable for the EV to automatically charge when electricity rates are cheapest. Along with that, 68% want EV to coordinate charging with other major appliances in the home, and 67% of EV owners EV powers the house when the battery rates are high. And so those three data points show you that there really is a lot of opportunity for automation, and a lot of EV owners actually really are interested in that. They're also much more likely to own other energy equipment such as solar, backup generators, smart water heaters, and smart pool pumps.
Okay, so there are landscape of devices in the home. When we think about what's the opportunity to coordinate, EV owners are much more likely to have those other, pieces of the puzzle to need that coordination, it sounds like. So, okay, well, what's the outlook for 2025? It was sort of a sad story the last couple of years, a little down, right? As you mentioned, what's it looking like going forward?
Yeah, and I don't want to be all doom and gloom, which I feel like the first part of this discussion was that, but the reality is that it is definitely a bump in the road. It's not the end of the industry. right? So we're seeing, for example, that interest rates are starting to come down, and I'm hearing about more rate cuts possibly next year. This will be very good for the auto industry at large, as well as for EVs specifically. We're also seeing the industry find creative ways to push forward in a way that makes the value more clear to the consumer. Ford recently announced, for example, that they're giving away chargers to go along with EV purchases, and I believe the installation as well. And that's really important because so many people buy the EV and then they got to figure out how to charge it and get that in their home. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, I love seeing that news. Trying to get past the sort of the hobbyists, those that are there for the tech, are there for because they're absolutely, again, kind of EV enthusiasts. To make it into mass market, you've got to take some of that uncertainty away that you talked about in the beginning. So I thought that was a really smart move by Ford to be giving the chargers away and taking on installation. I mean, really taking down some of that fear factor and the psychological barrier and the real education barrier around how is this going to work in my home. So, all right, well, let's talk beyond EVs, right? I talked a little bit about thermostats and HVAC. Appliances are another really kind of big area that energy providers, utilities are looking to potentially engage as a kind of next generation asset to bring on to potentially be able to engage in demand response programs. What are we seeing around uptake of smart appliances?
Yeah, and this one as well, I will have to share maybe some challenges before we, get to the good parts, which is always better to end on a high note. But the one of the challenges is just like the uptake in smart appliances isn't perhaps where the industry would like it to be at the moment. In our research, we find that 22% of consumers own at least one smart appliance that we test, which sounds good, but when you look at individual categories, nothing breaks the 10% mark, and most are closer to like 4 to 5%. So it's not necessarily an area that's booming at the moment. There's a lot of reasons for that though, such as long replacement cycles. For example, we saw a spike in buying in 2021 and a spike in adoption in 2021 during the pandemic. And these have long replacement cycles. So many of those who bought in 2021 are not going to be ready to buy again for a few more years now. Many people also have smart appliances and don't even know it. Our research has shown that in some cases because it's really not marketed well during the sales process. And at this point, some OEMs are only making smart appliances. So I expect in a few years, once we see replacement cycles, hit their mark, and we see more of the market is just smart appliances, then we'll see more people buy them, maybe not realizing that they're connected, perhaps. But also there's a challenge of getting the devices connected when you do buy them, and a lot of consumers do not. When it comes to the actual adoption of smart appliances, of course, consumers have to understand the benefits. And I was just looking at this recently. Our research shows that among the different tech affinity groups that we measure, from innovators who tend to adopt the most techie things and are the earliest folks to adopt new technology, all the way down to laggards, the segment that is most buying, say, smart refrigerators, for example, are the innovators. And even though smart home generally has now reached the mass market, smart appliances are kind of lagging behind a little bit in that area.
Yeah, makes sense. Consumers definitely need to understand the benefits, right? To be looking for these features when they're shopping. And to your point, a lot of times it isn't marketed. You've got the cost, the brand, the general features of wash cycles, and also the size of it and the energy efficiency of appliances for sure, with those Energy Star ratings being part of consumers' consideration set. But sometimes it's hard to know down there in the feature list whether or not this is a smart appliance. And then unless it's been really integrated into that setup process, most people get a dishwasher home and they set up you've got the plug it in and also the water side of it, but may not be thinking about there's a networking side of this in the same way that you might think of a smart thermostat is clearly a smart thermostat versus a traditional programmable one, and it's key to the core functionality of that device. So interesting. Well, are you seeing any particular appliances really standing out as being particularly useful for, as an asset in demand response programs?
Yes, I think that the dishwasher is one example of a smart appliance that could actually be very useful there. It's really the easiest to shift in time. For example, you can run it overnight. You don't have to run it during the peak periods, and you can also look at like the consumer data, which our data shows that consumers are most willing to adjust that during peak times after lighting the EVs. And they're also willing to allow OEMs and utilities to adjust as well, which is a pretty big deal when it comes to demand response. Water heaters are another one. Because of the demand impact that you get more bang for your buck there. After EVs and HVAC, it's like the top consumer in most households. And if you think about the water heater, it's not something where you necessarily need it running all the time, nor do you really need to pay attention to it. Something that just works in the background. And if you have a smart water heater that can learn the patterns of the household, who takes a shower when, that goes a big way to being able to determine when you can shut that off, and also when we best to participate in demand response.
Okay, definitely really interesting dishwasher water heater. We're getting a whole lot of audience questions coming in, some of which we'll be able to take here in this session, and some I might save for our panelists. So one question that came in around energy usage insights. So this is when I was talking earlier around consumers perhaps being interested in better or deeper energy usage insights. So one of the first things, in asking for examples, their thermostat perhaps only tells them runtime and a year-over-year view. So that's a great example of the limited amount of information that is getting through today. The number one thing that consumers say that they're interested in is to be able to understand how much energy, just in general, each of the devices and appliances are using in their home. We work in energy all the time, so we know HVAC, water heater, EV, of course, but after HVAC, a lot of people don't know that the water heater, for instance, is the next, usually, highest energy consuming device. What about their TVs? What about, the dishwasher versus the dryer versus the washer? Just being able to understand the impact that different devices have in their home. A lot of consumers think that lighting is a top energy consumer in their home, but with light bulbs and other lighting form factors becoming so much more energy efficient over the past decade, it's really come down as one of the more significant loads in the home. So first is just understanding kind of the relative usage of energy. Obviously, when you're thinking about the data that is valuable to others in the ecosystem, probably more about that energy, the signal, the pattern, right? So when am I usually running in this household? What is typical for this household that I'm on and off? When does this household do dishes? When does this household do laundry? Also, being able to tie in your rate plan into the ecosystem of knowledge around energy is really, really impactful, because adjusting anything for a homeowner that might be on a time of use plan versus somebody on a different type of plan, a tiered plan, for instance, where you're trying to keep under a certain threshold before your bill goes up, really, really impactful to what the consumers are going to like or not like on energy coordination in the home. The other types of energy usage insights, besides runtime and amount used, would be there are signals around degradation of performance that can be really valuable as well. So being able to look at how being able to get an indicator, for instance, of like filters being dirty or no longer, needing to be replaced because that's causing drag on the system, or that there's something in the runtime that is showing degradation in the system to encourage upgrades or maintenance services to come out to the home is another big one that we hear about quite a lot. Great question there. Let's see. So maybe one other question just to take now. I know we have just a few more minutes before we switch over to the panel. I saw a question around how Matter will impact the energy players in the smart home. And so, Matter is from the Connectivity Standards Alliance, the CSA. It's a major industry standard whose goal is to increase interoperability in the smart home. So many consumers today do buy just point solutions, and their devices don't necessarily work in any coordinated fashion. And so the big players, many of the players in the smart home industry getting together to say, hey, we need a way for our devices to be able to speak with each other. And why that's great for the energy players, and actually this is something we're taking on a little bit in our panel discussion too, is to be able to, it's a very, very fragmented ecosystem behind the meter, and the utilities are very much used to just looking at meter data and having that sort of sole source of truth. But there's all this great opportunity on the other side of the meter. And so being able to access that in a way that is less chaotic, standardized, that you're able to access it, share it back, maybe understand who the preferred control point is for the home, control agent, if you will, in the home is, and who you're talking to in that home, will make a lot of this more possible than having to do, partner by partner programs with individual brands. So taking a little bit of some of that work and that chaos out of the smart home, hopefully, by having more standardized ways to share some of that data.
Yeah, and I might add too that the possibility of smart home routines to be able to help save energy by setting up routines that can manage certain stages of when you're home, when you're going to bed, is really helpful. And I think Matter does have some promise there, even with the kinks that there are to work out. Helping manage the routines of your home, the automation routines, is going to be a big energy saver. And if you're not participating in a demand response program, then it does come down to doing it yourself. And that's one way where you can sort of have a DIY play in that space without having to necessarily rely on the utility to determine for you when the energy is going to be need to be have a response event. And AI in that space is also going to be a major part of that as well. The AI could potentially adjust things for you as well. But being able to have these things work together through Matters in a coordinated fashion, I think, is going to be very significant.
Okay, fantastic. I think we have maybe time for one last topic here. So Daniel, maybe we can talk a little bit about looking beyond residential. So the Parks Associates team just came off of a Smart Spaces event, which we hosted 2 weeks ago in Dallas, which is all focused on multifamily, hospitality, other smart spaces, getting a little bit beyond residential, small businesses even, right? To understand what are the opportunities for IoT devices, systems, services in markets that are kind of beyond residential but not yet industrial. And so it was really interesting to hear where energy plays in the multifamily market. It's interesting. Very different strategies are needed because you think of, especially for multifamily in an apartment situation, where you have really a split incentive, because if you own the property but you're not responsible for the energy bill, there's not a whole lot necessarily that you can do in unit, and you're not necessarily incentivized to do anything in unit because the resident is paying their own energy bill. Conversely, if the property owner is responsible generally for the energy bills, and it's just sort of rolled into rent, and they'd love to bring those energy costs down, they don't necessarily, again, have the control of what's happening in the units per se. So that being said, we do see a lot of interest and investment in thermostats in common areas, but also putting thermostats into units, even if the landlord, the property owner or manager, isn't necessarily controlling them when they are occupied. It's really all about those unoccupied vacant units, making sure that they're not being heated or cooled unnecessarily. But then when you have a prospective resident coming around to take a tour, that unit is already pre-cooled on a schedule and made comfortable for people to come around and look at those. Were you hearing anything necessarily on the EV side, Daniel, for when at smart spaces and sort of multifamily is thinking about EV chargers?
Yes, so there's definitely some pain points there, and we have consumer research that even goes along with that. Like we find, for example, a negative NPS, the Net Promoter Score for EVs, for those who have them in apartments or condos, versus with single family homes, it's more likely more like a 30. It's in the 30%. I don't have it right in front of me at the moment, but the experience for EV owners in apartment complexes or multifamily is also challenged by some other things. Like our research shows that the reliability of the chargers isn't very good. They easily get disconnected. But finding a charger is even more challenging. At smart spaces, we heard that sometimes the residents can park their EV at a charger and just sit overnight and use it as a parking space, which means that it doesn't allow it to be open for somebody else who needs to charge. And that's just a significant pain point there, and probably explains the low NPS scores for that. So there's definitely a lot of logistical challenges in multifamily when it comes to EVs. And for a lot of multifamily companies, there's also a question of what's the ROI on this? They're thinking about like, well, this is an amenity, but it's not something we're actually going to recoup much investment from. We're not making much money off of this. So it is one of those things where the community has to really do the math on that and figure out if it's right for them or their residents. If they want to attract residents who have more money and who are more interested in that experience with those amenities, it's probably going to be table stakes very soon, if it's not already. But it is right now still something that many complexes are grappling with, and it is a very challenging environment. I do not envy them that
Yeah,
process.
I think still a very early market in multifamily, trying to figure out those models, and it's like in a lot in real estate and multifamily, it's going to be market by market. That those higher end properties in California are going to have EV charging stations, regardless of whether they're really making money on it as an amenity. So really interesting conversations. Daniel, thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing some of what you're seeing in the market. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and if you'll give us just a minute, we'll be back and with our panelists, and we'll have our full discussion about demand side management and IoT devices role in that world. So give us just a minute. Thanks. Okay, great. So here we go with our panel discussion. I'm so pleased to invite our panelists to join me today for a great conversation here to share what they are seeing and what their companies are working on this demand side management question here. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to come on in to introduce themselves and their organizations and tell you how they kind of fit into the larger energy ecosystem. I'd love to start with Aaron, who's the Vice President Product Management for the Residential Business Unit for Leviton. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, Jennifer. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for participating today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about Leviton.
Yes. So, hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Hard. I'm Vice President of Product Management in Leviton's Residential Business Unit, where I'm responsible for our safety receptacles, load centers, lighting controls, including smart home. And since I also came from the engineering side, I still manage our internal app and cloud IoT teams for the company. Just a little bit about Leviton. It was founded in 1906, and today we have commercial, industrial, networking, and residential business units. In the residential space, which we're talking about today, we're really a leader in residential wiring devices, dimmers, switches, and smart home products, especially with contractors and builders. These are professionals that rely on Leviton every day for innovative and reliable products, and also for what's next, which is in-home electrification and some of the IoT technologies we're going to be talking about. When it comes to consumers, we know everyone's dealing with the rising cost of living, and Leviton's been answering that call through innovation, including we have the world's first smart load center, a really robust line of smart lighting and load control products, EV chargers, even smart GFCI safety outlets that we have all integrated into a single My Leviton platform. So, ultimately, when it comes to talking about energy, smart home, automation, Leviton's really focused on those user-centric innovations that support affordability and simplicities for our end users.
Fantastic, Aaron. You're seeing a lot, and you guys have a lot in your portfolio. So I'm really glad that you joined us today. Thank you so much.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Okay, and next we have Bruno, who's the SVP of Connected Offers with Schneider Electric.
Good.
Hey,
Thanks
Bruno.
a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting us. So I'm Bruno Capdordy. I am the Senior Vice President for Connected Offer for Schneider Electric. So Schneider Electric, we are the worldwide specialist on energy management, on the industrial business, commercial business, but also residential business. And I am working with a team of more than 300 people that are passionate about energy management at homes and in the small buildings with 3 technologies. So one is our home energy management system combined with an electrical panel we call the Schneider Pulse, an EV charger we call Schneider Charge, a solar inverter, Schneider Boost, and the solar battery part of the Schneider Boost environment. We add all those technology with an edge controller embedded in your electrical panel, and you will be able to display your energy consumption, your solar production, your solar stock with the battery, and the status of the different loads and appliances you will have at home. And we are able also to control your light, shutters, heaters, water heaters, pool pumps, thanks to the different products we are embedding in your panel or directly connected to your devices. So it's a worldwide platform. We have adapted the platform for several geographies. It has been designed and built for the US market, in the US market. And we have the same platform, the same cloud platform, the same edge platform, and the same application UX UI for the rest of the geographies, because it was mentioned, I think, during the introduction, but this home energy management solution and system problematic is a problematic or an opportunity for also the rest of the world. Australia Pacific, Europe, South America, they have the same needs. And so that's why we are building this global platform.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bruno. Yeah, really interesting to see that, and also what you guys are working on, and also to your point, how the different markets may differ. So designing this for the U.S. market. So thank you so much. Let's also introduce Tamara, who is the Director of Energy and Energy Markets at Ecobee. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I'm Tamara Dzubay. I'm a director on the energy team at Ecobee. Ecobee is a leading developer of smart home technology. Ecobee actually introduced the first Wi-Fi smart thermostat in 2009, and today Ecobee devices are in millions of homes across North America and participating in over 150 demand response programs across North America. Ecobee is also now part of Generac Power Systems, and together with Generac Technologies is really focused on creating a home residential energy ecosystem and helping to power a smarter, more resilient grid. Ecobee is obviously most known for its smart thermostat, but also has smart home cameras, smart doorbells, smart sensors, and is really focused both on the energy and security space.
Wonderful. Thank you so much as well for being here. So to start off, I think you guys did a really fantastic job of explaining kind of where your companies fit in the ecosystem. Maybe we could just say a little bit more about, and we'll go around the horn here and ask Aaron to start, about how the magic is actually happening from your devices and really helping to bring, that demand down, and maybe where the consumer interacts with that, and then whether or not the utilities are actually interacting with that, or through DERMS platforms, perhaps, to be called upon, as an asset. So Erin, maybe you can start first and share a little bit more about how your products actually work to really manage that demand.
Absolutely. So like you just discussed, a big challenge facing our industry is really energy management and how we're going to tackle this. Leviton's really been taking this head on, actually going back many years, trying to simplify the connected home. We want to provide homeowners access to smart, reliable, and safe electrical solutions and recommendations via really our what we call our My Leviton platform and app. And so what we've developed is our My Leviton platform. It's a cloud-based solution. It's modular and adaptable for the future as smart home and energy management technologies kind of change over time, and it's really evolving at a pretty rapid pace. And what this is it allows a homeowner to purchase lighting load control devices, EV charging, smart circuit breakers, and connect all these in one simple platform. They can start small if they want to, so they can start with a single device, so a single load control or a single smart circuit breaker, or they can grow it into like a whole home solution, just depending on their needs. And then they can control and configure this all from a simple mobile app. The products are all integrated with a lot of the industry leaders and platforms like Amazon, Google, Apple, Samsung. So we provide a lot of flexibility on the platform for users, just depending on what their preferences are. And from our perspective, we really want to put the customers in control of their energy consumption. So with our load center, you get circuit breaker level monitoring to pinpoint your usage and savings opportunities. You can enable load control and load shedding automatically. So if you want to reduce your usage during peak times, help lower your energy bill. It's also we also have the lighting control component. So for the comfort and convenience, right, of using your lighting is enabled in the system, and then also EV charging integrated with the system. So what we're trying to do is be able to bring this all together in a single platform and app that gives people an easy way to consume that information, and then make changes, set goals, and make adjustments to save energy.
Yeah. So quick follow-up question, kind of for you, and actually for Bruno as well. One of the audience questions that we got as we were talking earlier in the session was about, we talked a lot about the reasons why homeowners might want a home energy management system, but how many are actually interested? And I mentioned rising energy costs, and there's some interest there that is latent, perhaps, that is ready to be turned into interest. But can you share, and maybe over to Bruno next, on what demand you're seeing for this more coordinated view, right? And that, like, through a platform like My Leviton, right? Can you share anything about the demand that you're seeing for?
Yeah, I mean, we do see demand. I think a lot of it is like regionally dependent, because a lot of it's based on energy pricing. And for instance, I'm located in New Orleans, Louisiana. We're in oil and gas country. Energy prices are low, less demand here for those types of products versus, say, like California, right? But there is an increasing demand. I think from one, people are recognizing the need to save energy from a, I would say, climate perspective, right? And being able to be more eco-friendly. So there's groups of people, no matter where they are, that are interested in that. And then there's groups of people that, it's just expensive, right? And they need to be able to make adjustments to save money and save energy. And you start to see those in locations where really energy's, very expensive, especially where there's time of use or other type, not flat bill energy bill. So.
Got it. Okay, Bruno, then to you next. Yeah, if you could share some of the demand you're seeing for home energy management systems.
But I think to add on what Aaron was saying, so when we are looking at the global warming that is affecting our planet everywhere, we know that we need to act, right, for the future generation. And a lot of consumers are now equipping their roof with solar installation, looking to purchase an EV charger, even if in the previous call you were explaining that the demand is decreasing, but we see a level of penetration and an acceleration of the penetration of the EV charger everywhere. And we see a massive deployment of the heat pumps everywhere in the world and in the US too. So electrification, which is, a key driver for the decarbonization and the way for us to fight against global warming, is happening everywhere, and is happening in a lot of different states in North America. So when you are looking at California, yes, for sure, California is much more advanced compared to other states, but you see a lot of equipment coming everywhere in the US, and consumers starting to purchase electrical equipment to decrease their energy bill, but also to decarbonize their homes. The second pillar we are looking at this is, along with this massive trend of electrification, we see a need to purchase systems that will help and enable electrification. So a simple stat to start. In the US, we know that 48 million homes have been equipped with electrical panels that are 100 amps electrical panels. And when you are adding an EV charger, when you are adding a heat pump, when you are adding also a solar inverter and a battery, the physics will attain a certain limit. So your electrical panel and your electrical installation has not been designed to receive this amount of electrification in your home. So you need, and you will need, algorithms, you will need connected systems that will help you to balance between the new features and the new loads and the new appliances you will connect to your homes with the physical capabilities of your electrical installation. So yes, you can upgrade your service, you can upgrade your panel, but the cost of upgrading your service and upgrading your panel is very high in the US compared to other geographies. So it's super important, along with all the connected devices Aaron was mentioning, and Schneider Electric, we are in the same trend. We are connecting the different devices in your panel, outside your panel, to allow you to enjoy this level of electrification. You need to have algorithms based on artificial intelligence to really anticipate the needs you will have in your home, along with the meteo forecast, and to propose you scenarios of optimization to allow electrification and decrease your energy bill. So that's what we, Schneider Electric, are building, and we are, following, I think, all together the same trend, because the trend is to electrify the homes to make them more sustainable.
Yeah, and just to follow up, because we actually got a question as you were talking around affordability, and you mentioned, upgrading the panel and upgrading your service can be quite expensive in the U.S. So just, you mentioned obviously the goal is to bring the energy costs down as part of that value equation. What other areas do you see for making these products more affordable? Is it really around the incentive, the tax incentives, for instance, in the government, or are there other angles you can speak to affordability there?
I think, when you are looking at the Energy Star program in the US, it's something that is really interesting, right? Because you can start, like Aaron was saying, with a single device, right? And when you're looking at Ecobee, the technology of the thermostat they are providing, they are eligible for this Energy Star program. So it's really interesting that you can start to decrease your energy consumption and to receive incentives in the US, leveraging the Energy Star program. And what is super interesting in the US is now you have an Energy Star program and incentive for the smart home energy management solution. So if you want to start with a connected thermostat, you can. And if you want to expand your system with other appliances, other products, you will enjoy another level of tax incentive thanks to this Energy Star program. On top of that, affordability, yes, we are working, I think, all together, not all together, but we are working on making this technology, the more affordable possible. So how? By decreasing the importance of the algorithms at the level of the cloud, for example, and putting more algorithms at the level of the edge. It will decrease energy consumption. It's a green software approach. And it's also a way for us to ensure more data privacy and more cyber security in the homes. So it's a cost, analysis, but it's also reinforcing the data privacy and the cyber security of the consumers. A second way to optimize the consumption, it's really to be able to concentrate in the panel more usages, and then by default, to be able to connect more usages using connected circuit breaker. I know Leviton has this technology, but when you are looking at the Schneider Pulse, we have this technology too. So it's also a new way to provide a home energy management system a more affordable one.
Okay, thanks for taking that one. So Tamara, I really am interested to hear, Ecobee is kind of the founder somewhat of the smart thermostat category, and you mentioned, I think, that Ecobee is participating in 150 different demand response programs now, if I heard that right. Can you share a little bit about some of the strategies that you take when customers are Ecobee customers, helping them to understand how they can adopt more energy saving behaviors and even get into the demand response programs and Ecobee's role at that nexus?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ecobee is really all about delivering beautifully curated customer experiences and making seamless automation really easy for customers through the app. So when we are engaging customers in any type of energy reduction program, it's offered through our thermostat optimization platform, which is called Eco Plus. And this is something that customers can engage on when they register their Ecobee thermostat. And it's also something that is available to them on the Ecobee app. And through the in-app marketing tactics, we're able to match customers to incentives that utilities are offering for different types of programs. And so a customer that's opening their app for the first time will see that based on their location, there's a utility demand response program that is offering them $1 or anywhere from $25 to $100 incentive to participate in energy reduction on peak demand days. And so Ecobee really tries to simplify the experience for customers and make it really easy for them to want to reduce energy, save on their bill, and also help reduce strain on the grid during peak demand times. And so we offer energy efficiency optimizations through features that automatically adjust for indoor humidity conditions, which is doing micro adjustments every day, all year long. We offer time of use optimization. If a customer can identify the name of their time of use rate in the app, the device will automatically set back each day during the peak demand times. And so it's almost like a mini demand response event every day. And it drives significant customer bill savings, on the magnitude of over 25%. And then obviously the programs that I think have scaled the most in the industry are the utility demand response programs, which we introduce in partnership with utilities through in-app marketing. And those are really focused on peak demand reduction days. And actually this year we've launched a new emergency demand response program that helps tap into the full footprint of Ecobee devices if there's a grid emergency, by helping customers seamlessly auto-enroll to help prevent outages.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So for the auto-enroll, that would be folks that haven't already signed up, you're saying, for a demand response program, but there's an emergency, so you're able to push out to them and say, is it just a one-time, or does that then enroll them through all the way to a program kind of forever? Is it just for that emergency?
It would be for the emergency, but post-emergency, we would kind of lead them to marketing for the typical demand response program that calls events more frequently. So it can really help customers get comfortable with the idea of participating in these types of programs in a low frequency way when it's really needed most, but then also, get them comfortable with participation and lead them into the utility program, which calls events obviously more frequently and has in some cases pretty attractive customer incentives to participate.
Yeah, that. since you're working, in all of these programs with utilities, can you share some of the main challenges that you're seeing aligning smart home technologies with utility goals and, sitting in the middle there? Is it mostly about consumer participation? Is it sharing? Is it the way the utilities and technology companies are sharing different organizations? So, what are some of the main challenges that you're seeing in those pieces coming together?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest challenges is friction in the customer enrollment experience. And so if like a utility customer enrollment requires customers to enter something like their utility account number, and like a residential customer just doesn't know that information off the top of their head, that significantly deters enrollment and like reduces the overall enrollment percentages in the program. And so, we can just see by like customer engagement and different screens and app where there's drop off. And so really making participation easy, like, the way that like Uber and Apple Pay have made like seamless customer experiences. I think moving the energy sector to like that seamless customer experience is really going to drive customer engagement and participation, because I think customers want to participate in these types of programs if it's easy for them to do so, and really, drop off at points when it becomes hard.
Yep. Definitely. We hear that a lot from those who are working with utilities. They just have not necessarily been used to providing a same type of consumer service that is expected from a kind of tech-enabled consumer service today. It's been, you build them, there's setup, right? There's turn on the service, there's billing of the service, and then there's shutdown of the service. And so having that continuous touch point in all of these programs takes some organizational shifting. So one thing we were talking about, kind of, Bruno, back to you, that Daniel and I were talking about a minute ago, was around how EVs, of course, really change the consideration of the home and what's needed from kind of demand management, but also, of course, solar being the two major ways that you just really change how you live at home and how your household participates in energy production and consumption, of course. When we think about smart panels and how, their role in coordinating smart devices and the EV charging and the solar, what are you learning about the ability to tie all of those pieces together today? And we did have a question from the audience that I think was saying that some of the solutions that they've seen so far hasn't seemed to be able to tie that together well yet. And so I imagine you might want to respond to that, but it says nobody seems to provide ways to manage usage that considers the solar generation, batteries, optimizing HVAC and EV charging, and feeling like this isn't still, working quite. How do you see it working?
Thanks a lot for this question. So
You're welcome.
to answer to this question, it's so let's subsegment a little bit the answer. So first, yes, you're right. So EV charger and solar inverter and battery are changing completely, the way you will live at home. And it's also, to create a link between what Tamara was saying and this question, it creates also a huge disruption in the grid, right? Because the model of previsibility and forecast of the different power utilities are completely challenged by this new paradigm, okay? So we need to create, in the demand response program, algorithms that are helping the consumers and the grid operators to manage, the grid stability and the grid continuity. So that's the first. Second, when you're looking at, then as a consequence, if you want to really tie the different products together, you need to combine, in one algorithms, the different needs of the consumer. So as a consumer, I have an EV charger, I have a solar inverter, I have a solar installation, I have electrical heatings, because I am in France, so I have electrical heatings. So then as a consequence, yes, it's a challenge for us as a family to reconcile the different needs you will have in your home, because You need to reload your electrical car, you need to warm your home, you need to enjoy the different tariffs that are coming from the grid, and you need also to be able to leverage, the solar production. So what we have decided as Schneider Electric is to be able first to integrate our own product. Okay, so using the connected relays in the panel along with the monitor we are having in the panel, so we are able to do 3 actions that are key for a smart home energy management system. We are able to monitor, to control, and to optimize. So monitor, we will capture all the information coming from the different devices you are connecting to the Schneider Electric smart home and energy management system using Schneider Electric product or third-party product, because yes, you're right, and the person that has asked the question is right. We need also to be able to manage third-party equipment. So that's why we are integrating third-party equipment thanks to the OCPP protocol for the EV charger, thanks for the SenSpec protocol for the solar inverter and solar batteries, and thanks for some platforms like Airzone, iDo, or other platforms that are helping us to manage also the heat pump. So connecting our own devices, thermostat, EV charger, and solar inverter and battery is not enough. We need to comply also with third-party device. And then once you have connected all your devices to your platform, you need to have advanced algorithms. So before, what we were doing basic automation and advanced scheduling, right? Learning the usage of the different owners, learning how the homes is behaving, what is the inertia of every rooms. Now it's not enough. So that's why with the artificial intelligence hub inside Schneider Electric, we have decided to create this brand new artificial intelligence algorithms. We have launched in Europe so far, and now we are launching in the US, helping you as a consumer to reconciliate the different needs you are having at home, plus, combining with the meteo forecast. So we try to figure it out, how to create automation or scheduling that are reconciliating the different needs. And without, advanced algorithms powered by artificial intelligence, it's not possible. So that's why we have taken this path to really create these advanced algorithms at homes.
Fantastic. And part of what you're talking about there too, when you're talking about, trying to integrate with third-party systems, because in order to do this control, you need to be able to see, devices outside of your own system, really speak to some of the heart of what I wanted to bring up next. And so Aaron, to you, and Tamara, if you want to join in on this too, about, your perspectives on how to unlock data sources needed for that smarter coordination. So both for the devices within the home, with smart meters back to the utilities. Aaron, can you share a little bit about how you're thinking about coordinating and sharing data and integrating with others for energy management?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I kind of look at it as 2 different areas. One would be like sharing data. The other is what I would call more integration or interoperability. When it comes to sharing data, first and foremost, you got to start off by saying like data privacy is like of critical importance, and that the customer needs to be able to remain in control of their data. For Leviton, they've trusted us for decades with their physical safety, and we kind of treat their digital identity with that same attention and respect, right? So when we talk about Leviton products, we talk about data sharing, we allow customers to access their data, and we always let them choose to opt in to programs before we share any data, right? So that, just putting that out there first and foremost. But then when you talk about data sharing and you talk about big data, those is used for a different purpose than maybe saying integration and interoperability. So you can do data sharing and then do analytics and do AI on those things in order to determine actions or get key insights. But a lot of what, and kind of, I think what Bruno was talking about is when you're in a situation where you're trying to integrate all these disparate systems, now it's more about not just sharing. Yes, there's data between the different products, but there's also communications and protocols and interoperability to actually make them do something or work together. And I think that's where there's probably a lot of challenge in the industry to date, right? Because, you companies that probably made batteries and inverters weren't the same companies that are making load control to actually be able to turn things on and off to affect the energy management. So those companies are having to learn to work together, right? That's where things like standards come into play, especially one that's very popular right now in the smart home is Matter. So Leviton is a member of the Connectivity Standards Alliance. Matter is a group that has got together to standardize smart home and how its devices can communicate together in the smart home. But they are also starting to move into energy management. So I think with the latest Matter specification 1.3, it includes support for things like EV chargers and for energy monitoring of different devices in the home. So it's a growing standard, and it's going to evolve over time. But that's where I think we're going to start to see real interoperability and choice for the consumer, because they then can go choose, hey, is this device supports Matter, this device supports Matter, I'm confident and comfortable that they're gonna work together, right? And so the industry's moving in that direction. It's just good things take time.
Well, and thanks for addressing Matter specifically, because that we had, I think, several questions from the audience asking about Matter specifically. So it sounds like Leviton is in there and supporting Matter, and it is definitely a work in progress. Tamara, did you want to comment on some of the how you view either industry standards efforts or kind of being a good citizen in the data sharing ecosystem, and maybe where there are still challenges there today?
Yeah, I think it goes back again to like friction in the customer experience. And so like when we look at utility programs, like compared to energy market programs, getting customers enrolled in energy market programs is a lot more cumbersome for them, because they need to go through like different like data sharing authorization platforms to authorize access to share their utility meter data. And so like obviously Green Button Connect is like the primary standard right now for that, and it's implemented in lots of different ways across the country, some better than others in terms of customer experience. But really, again, like moving that process to something that's much more simple for customers, that like really enables them to like engage, like where they're engaging with the offer, like they're able to complete enrollment, like not having to go to a third-party website, fill out like a form of completely new information that they may not know when they're engaging with that offer. And so I think moving the ability for like customer authorization of sharing of meter data to be a lot more simplified, something that can be like all done in a vendor app, would really help drive greater participation in energy market type programs. And similarly, like a lot of these devices have telemetry data, right? And I think things can be measured using device telemetry data. Obviously, like thermostats have runtime data, and there's HVAC connected load, and together that can be used to measure and verify energy impacts as well, in a way that might prevent customers having to go through a really cumbersome process to participate in a program just to be able to share access to their utility meter data.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Okay, we have a few minutes left. I wanted to see, I recognize that we got a question from the audience all around kind of insurance rates, which is really interesting. Insurance has come up in so many different panels recently on all sorts of different topics. Insurance rates rising across the country here in the United States. A lot of it, to your point, Bruno, earlier with stronger storms, a lot of it cataclysmic, right? Natural disasters driving these insurance rates up, but it's causing a problem in the multifamily space. It's causing problems for homeowners. Someone raised an issue with, some insurers looking at EVs and EV chargers as being potential fire risks and having issues around that, and wondering whether there might be something around either home storage or home management devices I haven't heard this brought up before. So from my point of view, I haven't seen anything yet that insurers are somehow looking at home storage or home energy management or panels, the next generation of panels as being particularly risky. But did anybody want to comment on that as well, or anything that you're seeing from the insurance side?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting because it's not the first time in the world we are deploying solar inverters or solar batteries or EV chargers, right? And back in the days in Europe in 2008, 2009, we did deploy massively solar installations, and that was a big concern of the insurance companies, right? Because a lot of people were looking at those solar inverters and batteries, solar panel with all the wires, going down from the roof to your electrical installation. And what we learned from that period is you need to train your electricians, contractors to ensure that they have the right skills when it comes to electrify your home. So that's the first pillar. Second pillar is, I think in the US, we are lucky because we have this UL standard that is reinforcing, the way you have to operate in the electrical environment. So if you combine the training of your partner, your contractors that are ensuring your safety every day by installing, electrical panels and all the associated, products you have in your panel, along with the standards that are continuously evolving to host these new devices, these new loads in your home, you will have no problem, in the electrical installation. But yes, for sure, it requires a level of discipline more than ever because, electrification comes with constraints, electrification comes with dangers. So you need to really identify the people that are installing your electrical assets at home. And that's why you have, I think, all of us, we have a network of contractors that are trained, and you need to rely on them because they aren't trained by us. They are following the codes and the standards. And that's, by following the codes and the standard that you will ensure the safety of your installation.
Yeah, great comment. Okay, so we have just a few minutes left here. So I just wanted to maybe go and get your last kind of final thoughts. And Bruno, I'll start with you and then go to Aaron and give Tamara the last word on sort of looking ahead. I mentioned this is our last virtual session for Smart Energy for this year. So as we look out sort of towards the end of the year and next year, what emerging trends or technologies you believe are really going to be shaping this future of energy efficiency in smart homes and engagement with devices? Bruno, if you want to start, and then we'll go to Aaron and Tamara to close this out.
No, I was looking at the question in the chat, and I was looking at your presentation before. So I think we are just at the beginning of the journey, right? When we are looking at the number of demand response programs that are coming, when you are looking at the new protocols that are coming also in the market with Matter, that is a big disruption in the market. And when you are looking at the amount of electrification we need to deploy everywhere in the world to ensure this fight against the global warming, I think, artificial intelligence algorithms along with the Matter protocol will be not disruptions, but evolutions that are keys to really connect more quickly the asset with a common database model. And, Aaron was mentioning, the database model and how to really interconnect the product together. So I think those two evolutions will help us to accelerate the pace of the home energy management system and solution at homes.
All right, Aaron, to you.
Yeah, so I think what we're going to continue to see is, I'm going to say the combination of smart home technology along with energy management products to kind of form that complete energy management solution. You will start to see through standardizations and protocols like we talked about Matter, integration and interoperability between those products as companies start to implement those technologies. It's going to become easier, right? Not only for the contractors and the installers, but also for the homeowners. As things progress, there'll be economies of scale. So this technology will become more affordable as more and more units are sold and volumes achieved. We're going to continue seeing those types of trends. A lot of trends, regarding continuing to support improving our environmental impact but also public health, like air quality, right, is going to be a trend that we see a lot. Everyone sees AI. I agree with Bruno. AI is going to play a role in this, right? Being able to use that, especially to digest all this data we're generating and collecting, so that we can turn it into actionable insights. We're going to see that coming, and I think Leviton's at a really good spot with our platform and our products to be able to start enabling some of that technology for our customers, and we're really excited about the future.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, and Tamara, last word to you.
I think we're going to see an evolution of like energy efficiency towards flexible load management. And so a lot of utility programs right now are either focused on energy efficiency or demand response. But like with this move towards, like obviously data centers driving greater demand and renewables providing like intermittency in supply, like we're going to need to have dispatchable demand side resources that can respond like more continuously to these trends. And I think that's going to lead to an evolution of not just overall energy savings, but like when are these energy savings happening and how can we move towards programs that are providing actually like flexible load management every day to meet these needs.
Well, I can't thank you all enough for your participation today. Flexible load management, air quality, AI, matter, all sorts of great things to be looking forward to leaving this year on an optimistic note. So thank you all so much really for your participation. And to the audience, you all came with questions today, which I appreciate. Really interesting questions. So thank you so much for your participation. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great opportunity.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. And so for those who are interested in understanding more about how the consumer is thinking about energy management devices and services in their home, we do have a study out that is our annual trending study with a lot of trending data to show how perspectives and participation in these programs has changed over time. And you can scan the QR code to access that. And I also wanted to invite you all to our 2025 series. So we kick off in January. We'll be looking at anything energy, smart energy related at CES. We're always at the Consumer Electronics Show in January. And then always a kind of a look ahead to what might be coming up at DistribuTech. Our in-person Smart Energy Summit is co-located with DistribuTech this year, which is in March. And then we have another virtual session in December. We also invite you to attend any of our event series. We have our Connection Summit at the Consumer Electronics Show. If you're going to be there, we'd love to see you there at the summit, and then also at our networking reception, and invite you to all of our other events as well. And I just wanted to thank again our sponsors so much for your support this year of Smart Energy Summit. It's been a really fantastic year with great panelists like you just heard, research presentations, and networking at our Smart Energy Summit. So thank you to SmartThings, Skybell, Arcadia, Residio, and Universal Electronics. Thank you.